Alright. Well, guys, it looks like I messed up. I mispronounced Don Vito Corleone as Don Vito Corleone for 2 episodes of my Godfather reviews. Part 1, it can be forgivable because it's, my first podcast on The Godfather, and then my second podcast on The Godfather, where I did it again. That's a choice. I guarantee you guys, it isn't. It generally rolled off my tongue, and I didn't bother to correct it. So, if you're listening to this for the first time, then I don't know what else to say except that you're being introduced to this podcast on a very apologetic note. I'm going to put it that way. And if you want to cancel me, feel free to do so. Just know that it only takes like 4 tweets, mean tweets, and I'm going to disappear from the interwebs forever. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. I'm sorry once again for what I'm not about to do in The Godfather Part 3. I'm actually going to say the correct pronunciations. In fact, I'm not even going to, if any at all, I'm not going to say the second name of the characters. I'm just going to be like, Michael, Don Vito, Vincent, something like that. I'm not going to be like Don Corleone, because I'm still trying to get used to it, you guys. So, let's all be loving and forgiving citizens of the pop culture realm.
Hello there.
The cinema courtroom is now in session.
Ladies and gentlemen of the cinema courtroom jury, it is I, your one and only galactic host and judge, Mucker Mark, who is very proud to put the Godfather trilogy behind us, which ends with part 3 in the cinema courtroom hearing for Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. It feels like only yesterday that November had just started. So, congrats for making it a week into the month. If you happen to be tuning in to the Cinema Courtroom podcast for the very first time ever, whether you're listening through Spotify or listening through Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon, or the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel, where you're also going to get a fair dose of some video content that you're not going to find on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon. So it'll be in your best interest to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And while you may not be Don Corleone, notice what I did there? Again, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. When it comes to doing favors, do me a rather simple one though, and click the thumbs up or follow button, because we also cover a bunch of other blockbuster motion pictures, including old and new releases, which is going to include Black Panther Wakanda Forever in 2 weeks. Furthermore, it is absolutely vital for your listening pleasure to tune in to this RSS feed weekly. And who knows? You might find something that you might like or want to get introduced to for the very first time. Think of me as your movie wingman between you and the movie of your dreams. Now, without further ado, let us begin with our review topic, The Godfather Part 3. We have now reached the threshold of the end of this Godfather trilogy with The Godfather Part 3. Now, when you compare Part 3 of The Godfather to other Godfather installments, I feel conflicted with how mediocre The Godfather Part 3 is, especially when compared to Part 1 and 2 of The Godfather. And something that you have to, take into account is that whenever I say that Lord of the Rings is my favorite movie trilogy, I actually mean that. Because the difference between Lord of the Rings and The Godfather is that I think that Lord of the Rings had 3 perfect motion pictures. The Godfather only had 2 exceptional pictures, in my opinion. Part 3 of The Godfather broke that, quote-quote, masterpiece streak. And the aim of this review is to get to why I didn't like Godfather Part 3 compared to the other Godfather movies. Oh, and by the way, this isn't like the worst movie of all time or anything. If anything, and I'll get into more of that in, the final verdict, it's better than most Hollywood movies that we unfortunately keep seeing today. And also, television series, where apparently She-Hulk twerks with Megan Thee Stallion. I digress to say that while The Godfather Part 3 wasn't perfect, nor could it fill the shoes of The Godfather 1 and 2. I don't think that it should be, harshly critiqued, as many people online and in real life are doing. I think Godfather Part 3 is good in its own special way. It just shouldn't play with other kids. It should have its own playground. You know what I mean? Like, first and foremost, let's just get into the plot of this final installment. Michael is in his 60s. He wants his business to be legitimized. His 2 children, Anthony and Mary, are all grown up. And on top of that, he wants to find a suitable heir to succeed his mafia empire. As you already know, Michael and Kay are divorced as depicted in the events of the previous Godfather film. So, we got the basic premise of The Godfather Part 3 out of the way. But something that disappoints me about a very, discomforting element of the plot is that at the end of The Godfather Part 2, Michael orders the killing of his brother. And then he has to come to the realization that he's always going to be alone in that mansion. My main issue with Part 3 of The Godfather is that just by watching the first act of this movie, Michael not only has second thoughts, but without proper explanation, the writers made it so that Godfather donates millions of dollars to charity and basically tosses aside every single effort that he was making in order to consolidate power of the mafia realm by giving up control in his business just because of the fact that he killed his brother. And I believe most of the audience don't understand that whenever I say that there's no justification in regards to the drastic change to Michael's character arc, because the main reason that he killed Fredo in the first place was to consolidate power, right? The reason that he executed his brother was to basically show the other crime family groups and crime bosses that Michael Corleone isn't a force to be reckoned with. There is a lack of any justification to why Michael is the Michael who we get to see in The Godfather Part 3. The dialogue for the first and second half of The Godfather Part 3 was, and again, it pains me to say it, but it was trash. Especially, with Sophia, the actress. And any scene involving Mary, oh my goodness, I cringed. The only thing that the actor for Mary did right was, and you want to hear what she did right? Drop dead for a few seconds. Well done to her for that. Although I will make the assertion that the third act of The Godfather, when it came to the escalation to the ultimate climax, Mary's death, and just Al Pacino's acting in that scene in general. Speaking of Al Pacino's acting and character when it came to his daughter's death, it is honestly remarkable how that reaction, that silent cry at the start, and then, we then get to hear it become audible to the audience's, eardrums. Like, all that to his daughter's demise was a culmination of the whole Godfather series. And it's a testament to how well that it's scripted, because in The Godfather Part 1 and 2, he rarely showed any emotional weakness. His father died. Okay. His mother and brothers died. Well, I mean, he may have reacted in, certain ways, but he was just like, he wasn't like crying or anything. His daughter dying was the tipping point of the iceberg. That very scene where Michael illustrates his substantial agony of what had happened was more effective than any scene that featured just ordinary exposition. It oddly made Godfather Part 3 an upgrade from Part 1 when it came to the acting, because other than Part 2, the acting was nothing more than just average or overacted, in my opinion, for Part 1. But my oh my, the third installment ended with such a solid third act landing. The whole opera scene, just wow. I thoroughly enjoyed all of the Vatican scenes in this movie and how it was spread out to build tension. How the Pope is ill and then he dies. Like, the way they just built the tension, was phenomenal. I could confidently say that I still appreciate The Godfather Part 3 much more than a vast majority of movie critics on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes do. And I mean, those critics are entitled to their opinion. But at the same time, I do think that The Godfather Part 3 wasted its potential when it came to the storytelling aspects. And it just threw away the ending of the previous movie like trash, just to make a quick buck. Like, I'm still happy to watch The Godfather Part 3 again, because after all, who doesn't want to see more Godfather? And I'm definitely going to take The Godfather Part 3 over the other films that we're getting in this day and age, unfortunately. When it comes to television, She-Hulk exists. So I'm not really mad at The Godfather Part 3 at all. Like, The Godfather Part 3 is like Lord of the Rings compared to She-Hulk. I digress to say that while I am not mad at The Godfather Part 3, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I am just disappointed. Godfather Part 3 sank its glittering potential like a Titanic that at first not everyone would believe it's going to sink, because the Titanic had a very, good sail throughout the years that it had existed. But ultimately, it ends up sinking tragically. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, when you don't end with a bang, if one movie, breaks the stamina of making good quality pictures, then it's like, that's kind of how the trilogy is defined as a whole. The Cinema Courtroom contends that The Godfather Part 3, with wasted potential, mediocre acting when it came to any scene involving Michael's daughter, Mary, as portrayed by Sophia, with the exception of Al Pacino's brilliant acting in the end of this movie. The Godfather Part 3 is fun and games to view, but unfortunately that is not a redeeming factor for this picture. Overall, The Godfather Part 3 is a run-of-the-mill installment compared to the sheer brilliance of Part 1 and 2. If you are interested in all of my hot takes that pertain to popular motion pictures, perhaps some that you've never even heard of before, today is the day, ladies and gentlemen, to get your free subscription of the Cinema Courtroom Show with no strings attached. Clicking this podcast, you will gain access to over 20 episodes on our RSS feed, and it's going to be updated twice a week. So chances are you might find a movie that you are fascinated with, or even better, you've never even heard of the movie, and looking for a quick introduction is all you might be going for. And that's totally fine, because I get it. Time is money. There is no point in wasting it. So why not stick around? I will do the talking for you. And now we begin to approach the second half of the Cinema Courtroom show, which is the post-sentencing hearing. What is the post-sentencing hearing? Well, I'm rather glad you asked this, because in the first half of the Cinema Courtroom podcast, we reviewed The Godfather Part 3, which is one of many films that I've selected, old and new, big and small, underrated and overrated, the broken and the damned, black, white, brown, orange, and blue. Then, in the post-sentencing hearing of the Cinema Courtroom show, I assemble all of the leftover topics that pertain to the film industry in general, movie news and movie-relevant subject matters overall, that aren't just limited to one specific movie. It could be multiple, or it could be anything regarding one or two, whatever. I talk about pretty much anything that's cinema related. And then I integrate it into one post-sentencing hearing list. Perceive it as an after party that is long overdue, where you, yes you, the awesome listeners tuning in on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel. Or, in judiciary terms, you may think of the post-sentencing hearing as an invitation to a retrial in order to rectify an existing unfair hearing. Because sometimes, like the organic sapient that I am, I find that I've been too critically generous or harsh about a movie. So the majority of the time, or, all the time really, my opinions do change after a rewatch or two, which means I'm compelled to review the motion picture again in a post-sentencing hearing. If you enjoy what you're hearing, what I have to say, if you have done so already and you'd feel so inclined, I would very much appreciate it if you give this podcast a reshare and like this episode by clicking the thumbs up or heart icon on regardless of the platform that you're listening to the Cinema Courtroom on. And by doing all that, you will be supporting the Cinema Courtroom as well as its future episodes, installments, and assets. That being said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I salute you in advance for your generous engagement and support, and I hope you continue to join us in the ride to success. In this hearing, we are going to cover the following: a new movie starring Chris Evans and Dwayne Johnson, a potential Black Panther 3, and the end of production for Shazam 2. Enjoy. I'm getting quite salty, because I've had someone tell me that there are always going to be other fish in the sea, right? Well, not when there's a freaking large worm from the boat in the surface, which is Chris Evans and Dwayne Johnson. Because unfortunately right now, for me and any of us men, Chris Evans and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson are the chick magnets of Hollywood. So, oh well. But anyway, let's get on topic. Chris Evans and Dwayne Johnson will be starring in Amazon's Red 1. If you take a look at The Rock's Instagram page, it does contain the following caption that's, a clue of what Red 1 might be about. Officially kicking off production for a Christmas franchise film titled Red 1 with my guy at Chris Evans. Chris and I have been waiting to make a Christmas movie our entire careers. And now finally, the trouble begins. Okay, so based on this caption alone, which I just read, it indicates the following things that we should consider. The first thing is that Red 1 is a Christmas project. The second thing is that nothing about the story has been revealed or teased, which means that we're left in the dark of what Red One, which happens to be starring Chris Evans, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Oh, and I forgot to mention J.K. Simmons, apparently. We don't know the premise of Red One. Whether or not it is going to be a success, obviously, or just another money-grabbing motion picture trying to lure in the average moviegoer by saying, look, we got two of your famous actors as a duo. But you know what? I'll probably give this movie a chance when it comes out in the local theaters. Because maybe Red One might end up being very exceptional. What do you think about Chris Evans, the Captain America, Star-Spangled Man, Killer in Knives Out, and Dwayne "The frickin' Rock" Johnson, the first of his name, Black Adam, WWE champ, conqueror of the local gym realm? Ladies and gentlemen, I am now going to appeal to you, the awesome listeners tuning in to this podcast. What are your thoughts on Chris Evans and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson being in the same movie together? Red One. Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comment section below or our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom. As each day fades away, November 10th comes nearer. In just 2 days from now, ladies and gentlemen, Black Panther Wakanda Forever is coming out, which I can't wait to review next Tuesday as well. The reason I'm bringing up Black Panther in particular for the show here today is because, well, it looks like there might be a potential, and listen very carefully, there might be a potential third installment for Black Panther, which is solely reliant on the box office returns of Wakanda Forever. Black Panther Wakanda Forever cost $200 million to make, as per industry sources that are credible. And, I think that it's accurate. 200 minus the budget for the movie's marketing and printing costs, of course, in order to justify a third Black Panther installment. And I'm fully comprehensive of the prospect that Disney has like a vault of cash somewhere in Mickey Mouse Utopia. They can make whatever MC movie that they want with this type of money. But one would assume that Wakanda Forever will have to make twice the number of the production costs in terms of ticket sales in order to break even. I haven't even watched Wakanda Forever yet, although I am going to go to the first IMAX showing for it. Black Panther 3 could cover some more ground in terms of Wakanda living without their rightful king T'Challa, because let's face it, Chadwick Boseman's death was sudden and out of place, which is why I am expecting Wakanda Forever to focus most of its runtime in justifying the absence of King T'Challa from the second movie.
I am queen of the most powerful nation in the world, and my entire family is gone.
And any leftover plot points they could then incorporate into a potential Black Panther 3. So, Black Panther 3 might therefore be useful in filling in missing gaps which Wakanda Forever is going to leave a trail of. And considering that Wakanda Forever would have introduced a new Black Panther, they could then bring over this new character to fill in what could have happened in the original script for Black Panther 2, and instead make that original script for Black Panther 2 into the script for a potential third installment. So once again, Black Panther 3 would be useful in progressing the Wakanda storyline in the MCU and establishing new realms that we're not going to see in Wakanda Forever. Maybe introduce Storm. Because, Storm, who is a fan favorite X-Men character from the X-Men, has comic book ties to Black Panther and Wakanda. What do you think about a potential Black Panther 3 incorporating all of that? Do you think Wakanda Forever might be able to break even to justify it this weekend? Do you think it's pointless? Are you even looking forward to watching Black Panther Wakanda Forever? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comment section below or our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom. David F. Sandberg just shared a behind-the-scenes image of Shazam to commemorate the wrapping up of Shazam 2 in all of its picture-locked glamour. The filming is done, the editing is done, the visual effects have been finalized. It's finished. Whatever they worked on for Shazam now, it's the exact product that we're going to see on the big screen March 17th, 2022. Now, one might ask, why is this piece of news significant? Another DC movie is finished. So, what's the big deal, right? Well, it's actually a significant deal breaker for the following reason. James Gunn and Peter Safran have taken over DC Studios like a day after David F. Sandberg literally announced that he was done with Shazam 2, coincidentally. James Gunn, or Peter, might as well have enforced changes to be implemented to the final product of Shazam, had they officially been the bosses before the completion of Shazam 2. And let's face it, they might very well do so at the last minute. Because what has stopped other directors, producers, and CEOs from sabotaging an existing product, right? I am talking to you, Justice League. What a piece of shit that movie was. Gosh, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm done. I don't even know why I name dropped it. I gave it the satisfaction. Okay, let's move on. Shazam 2 marks the last finished product that was ever manufactured under the old leadership, before the James Gunn era. What now? The James Gunn era has just begun. Well, first things first. Everyone involved in the production of Shazam 2 can take a long-ass nap until they have to do the marketing campaign for the movie and the press tour. And another thing, maybe James Gunn isn't going to make changes to Shazam 2. He might just offer David feedback instead. After all, James is the boss of DC Studios now. Part of his job description as boss is to oversee quality control. And hey, if he thinks that Shazam could do with a bit of tweaking, I bet you money that he'll see to it that, the sequel is either going to get reshot or re-edited for better or for worse. We will have to see, because only time will tell. So, while the question, what now, is a good question to ask, all we know for certain is that Shazam 2, as we know it, is finished with production. So, let's just leave it with that. But now, it is time for the listeners of the Cinema Courtroom Show to share their thoughts on this news. What do you think about Shazam 2 being finished? I'm handing over the mighty gavel on to you. Could they have spent more time on it? Has Shazam 2 finished post-production at a convenient time? An inconvenient time? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comment section below or our Twitter inbox. Links are in the description below. We have now reached the end of this podcast. Thank you for tuning in to the Cinema Courtroom Show, where we critique movies. I had a lot of fun doing this podcast, so be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed the 23rd episode of the Cinema Courtroom, just as I do every week making them. I hope to see you guys again in the next episode, where we're going to talk about, yet again, another movie. As for what movie it's going to be, find out when the next and 24th episode of the Cinema Courtroom Show launches this coming Friday on YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and the Amazon Music platform to find out what that movie of interest is going to be. Hint, it involves a demented individual. Thank you once again for listening till the end. I am your galactic judge, Mucker Mark, and I hope you have a spectacular day.
Hello there.
Court is now dismissed.